After the Clone Wars hiatus, Disney decided to bring it back by giving it 7th and final season. When it comes to the Bad Batch arc, I saw most people say that it was okay. After I watched this arc 3 different times, I obviously thought it was bad, and I'll justify my stance by going through each individual episode. Before I begin, I would like to say the animation was good. When comparing to what I saw in the beginning of the series, it was a massive improvement. Those were the days when it used to look like the Grubhub ad. I'll give the arc some compliments here and there, but it won't be much.
This is where the begins.
A lot of the flaws I saw were its choreography and its writing throughout the arc. Also, there will be spoilers. Plus, if it sounds like this, that means I'm trying to avoid copyright. Let's start out by covering episode 1, The Bad Batch. Season 7 begins with the Republic having to defend a shipyard on a planet called Anaxis. They are up against the CIS, who are led by Admiral Trench, who I'll refer to as Mr. Waternoose for obvious reasons. Then we get this awful line.
Pardon the interruption, General, but Rex here has a good theory on why we keep losing.
If you don't know why it's awful, it's because we get exposition on this rare occurrence for the show, while we almost always see this. I find it hilarious that Commander Cody literally pauses before he says losing. I like to pretend that wasn't in the script and D. Bradley Baker was legitimately confused. A lot of Separatist victories, including skirmishes on Anaxis, happen off screen. And when they do show their victories, they're usually short-lived. The show does display different perspectives of the war, but won't show one of their main antagonists' victories, even though they were winning the war at some point. How can we as an audience care that the Separatists are currently winning this battle when we can guess that they're going to lose? It would be nice to display more bad guys' victories to add tension to this show, because we already know what happens to a lot of these characters in the movies. Having this exposition is an example of the writers not using show don't tell. They could have opened with the Separatists winning a skirmish, but I guess they chose not to despite them doing that in the past. Moving forward, Rex says this pointless line.
The droid army uses analytics to predict our strategy. The first time we use a tactic, it's very effective. The next, less so. In fact, the more we use a certain tactic, the less effective it becomes. They learn our tendencies and use that data against us. To counter them, we're constantly working out ways to vary our attack.
Well, yeah, that's probably the most basic military understanding of war. The enemy will adjust to your previous tactics. Sure, I wouldn't be surprised if the Republic viewed the Separatists as dumb, but this is definitely elementary. To be shocked an opponent will do that. It's superfluous because the audience can assume that. Cody and Rex bring up on how the Separatists are possibly using analytics to figure out Rex's tactic in this battle due to how specific their counters are to his style.
Shit, Negro, that's all you had to say.
Remember this for later. So, they decide to bring in a special clone force to help them out. When Rex is reminiscing pictures of clones that have fallen, he tells Cody that he thinks Echo is still alive. Basically, a clone that exploded. Despite Cody's reasonable doubts, Rex thinks he's still alive because these Separatists know his tactics and apparently Echo and him drew up battle strategies together? Wait, there's only a few instances of Captain Rex being a planner, but even in those instances, he doesn't really come off as super strategic. Well, there's this plan that he made in Season 1. Yeah, he definitely made that one on the spot. The only time I can really give Captain Rex credit for being strategic is in the Umbera arc where he fundamentally disagreed with General Krell's orders. One of his reasons why is because he was going against Anakin's plan, so it wasn't really made by Captain Rex himself. It's kind of hard to believe that Captain Rex follows his own plans when he doesn't even follow orders all too well.
It appears your captain follows orders as well as you do. Perhaps Cody is boring Rex with standard procedures and protocol.
Well, I now see why Anakin Skywalker likes Captain Rex so much.
Gee, it sure is boring around here.
My boy, this peace is what all true warriors strive for.
Best part about our job are these boring strategy conferences. Cheer up, Anakin. This is your chance to voice all your complaints about military protocol.
He's a leader for sure, but not someone I would say is an X's and O's kind of guy when it comes to warfare. There aren't a whole lot of moments of him being strategic due to the fact he had to follow orders from Jedi. Speaking of Jedi, aren't they the ones in charge in making all the strategies? They are usually referred to as generals. Since they're in charge, they deserve more blame. I'm not saying that Rex and Cody have to chide the Jedi, but I think it would be nice to have a moment where maybe Mace Windu or Anakin looks themselves in the mirror. I think definitely Mace Windu, just because I think that might fit his character more so than Anakin.
It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's jealous. He's holding me back.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to buy into the idea that Captain Rex and Echo were making battle plans together. Anyway, Cody announces that they're going to go behind enemy lines with Clone Force 99. Apparently, the Force has a 100% success rate according to Kick, this guy. While Jesse, this guy, is concerned about how they fight. When I first saw this scene, it's really hard to tell which ones are talking and which ones aren't.
I've heard mixed things about these guys. They have a 100% success rate. It's not that they win, it's how they win that worries me.
I originally thought that this was Captain Rex and Commander Cody talking, and the reason why I thought that was because we just saw them in the previous cut. Also, from that camera angle, we really can't really see their mouths move. I know this is not the biggest deal in the world, but this is the few times where it really becomes an issue where they only use one voice actor. I'll bring up more on D. Bradley Baker's voice acting later. Well, Clone Force 99 has the perfect entrance by nearly crashing into the landing platform as if they're landing a plane and almost kill some workers. You'll see why I say that. After Rex asks about them, Cody says that they have desirable mutations and they call themselves the Bad Batch. Once they walk out, you can tell what all their roles are for each squad member. Wow, they copied Solid Snake's design. Apparently his name is Hunter, but you know what I'm going to refer to him as. The big dude is Wrecker, who I'll refer to as Superman Syndrome. This is Tech, and I'll refer to him as Elon Musk. Lastly, there's Crosshair, who I'll refer to as Eric Harris. Once they fly off for their mission, Eric Harris mentions that they usually don't work with regs towards Jesse, who didn't take it lightly and Snake had to hold him back. Then Cody debriefs them on how they're going into the satellite base to retrieve information, and then Superman Syndrome says this.
I can demolish that with one hand, yeah!
I can guess who was flying the ship earlier. Next, CAS droids spot the gunship flying overhead and they shoot it down.
We're going down!
Okay, he definitely flew the ship earlier.
We're going down!
But more importantly, why did the gunship fly over an area with enemies in it? The episode made it clear that the battle over the planet has been going on for some time, so borders should be clearly determined. With borders established, shouldn't they take a more stealthy approach and not just fly overhead dangerous territory where they can be easily shot down? They could at least have a throwaway line that they didn't expect the CIS to expand to their territory and that this was deemed a non-CIS controlled area or something like that. They have a very rough landing that all the main characters conveniently survive. Kick notices Cody is stuck and wounded under the ship. There was at least one pilot flying the ship, but I guess they didn't check? If a lot of clones in the squad could survive this, they might as well check on the pilot. I'm surprised an empathetic leader clone like Rex didn't mention it at least.
Sir, if I may address your accusation, I followed your orders, even in the face of a plan that was, in my opinion, severely flawed. A plan that cost us men, not clones, men!
Before Wrecker will rescue him, Eric Harris says this not so subtle line.
This is ridiculous. He's gonna need help to get Cody out of there.
He's gonna get the gunship out of there, not Cody.
We can tell what he means when he says in the first clause. Everything after that is already implied. How is it already implied? Well, besides Cody, who else are they going to get out of there since the pilot has been completely forgotten? And if Eric Harris was putting into consideration a Wrecker having an option between Cody and the pilot, it doesn't seem to be reasonable decision making, especially from Spec Ops. With the Bad Batch's 100% success rate, they should be good at no man left behind. So there really isn't any good reason for why they didn't check on the pilot. Anyway, Superman Syndrome picks up the ship to get Cody and it explodes behind them. Yep. That pilot is definitely dead now. As Kick is attending Cody's side, Eric Harris notices that the CAS forces are coming in. Rex actually says something logical, but Snake has different plans.
Find cover. We'll hold this position and let them come to us. I don't think so, Captain. That's not our style. We prefer going to them. Bad Batch, Plan 82, Shockwave.
And their plan isn't anything special. They charge the enemy and Superman Syndrome uses the gunship door as a shield. In the previous moments, the CAS could have started shooting at them right away. They throw a grenade up in the air and Eric Harris shoots it. What's the point of that? It's gonna blow up anyway. Why couldn't the droids get around the perimeter and start shooting at them on their sides? As it continues, they get out of cover because a spider droid started shooting at them. They were just standing there and the droids miss. How can the CIS be winning the Battle of the Naxos by this point with a droid missing a stationary target? The droid is at the same elevation as the squad and the droid missed behind them? How? Surprise, surprise, the rest of the droid battalion can't shoot straight. Snake literally runs up at them with a melee weapon at one point. How can I believe the squad has a 100% win rate with tactics like these? The show makes it out as if that the Bad Batch is going to use tactics different to what Rex is familiar with. Charging into battle is something that Rex has experienced before. More importantly, he has used plenty of unconventional tactics before. What's the most asinine part about this? They don't even have a Jedi around to assist them. Even though I have plenty of problems with battles across the whole Clone Wars series, at least having the Jedi there gives them some logic to these tactics. But I guess they just squandered the limited amount of logic that they had with the show already. Additionally, how was the CIS able to prolong for this long with soldiers like these? They've been around close to 13 years by this point. They should at least have competent soldiers if they've been able to persevere. People in the comic section of some of my videos brought up the reason why the droids were bad is because they were rushed into development. First things first, that's never explained in the show. I can imagine it explained in some of the novels, but definitely not in the TV series itself. I can understand maybe if this is when they first came out, however they've been around for over a decade. So we should see an improvement in the technology, and not only that, they were more competent in the movies. Furthermore, these droids have very eccentric personalities that I wouldn't imagine, and I don't think anyone else would imagine, would fit military droids. Including the fact that the droids came out crappy, I imagine they would improve them over the years. The reason why you want your villains competent at the minimum, it's because it gives the characters some reason to grow. When watching this arc, you really don't get to see Captain Rex grow as a character, let alone anyone else really. This is not just an issue in this arc, this is an issue throughout the series. The character growth in this series alone isn't very good, and partially the reason why is these characters don't have a reason to change due to how weak these villains are. You could probably make a case for some of the side characters, but not any of the main recurring ones. I know people are going to argue that Ahsoka had good character growth in the show, but I'll bring that up later why I have an issue with that. Back to the subject. Are there no more droids up above the valley to shoot down at them? For an action show that doesn't even have great writing, it doesn't even have good choreography for the most part. To top it off, after Rex compliments the Bad Batch's performance, Superman Syndrome starts playing with a droid's head.
Look, Crosshair, this little clanker likes you.
Grow up, Wrecker.
How is this guy a successful Special Forces squad while being this immature? I do find it funny that people think that this show is profound despite having moments like these. There are parts where the show takes itself very seriously, but then they have moments similar to this.
Oh, shoot, I'm not the commander. He's the commander. Guess I'm the commander now.
Come in, Minister Leone. Let's sit down and have a talk. So, I hear you have decided not to aid our attack on the Naboo.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We must put end to unfortunate bang-bang conflict.
I don't think how a show is deep or mature is appropriate for objective criticism or praise, but I do know there's fans out there that think it's good for these reasons. And it's hard to deny that that point can be negated easily. Back to the story, the commander droid comes to the battle well after it was finished, communicates with Mr. Waternoose, and orders them to search for them. Back to the clones, Jesse asks what is special with Snake, and Elon Musk answered that he has the most absurd ability yet.
He was engineered with heightened senses. A place like the Cyber Center, Hunter can feel the electromagnetic frequencies from anywhere on the planet.
The fact that his heightened sense can make him feel any electromagnetic frequency from anywhere on the planet is insane. That sounds as if he has a godlike ability. Surprisingly, Elon Musk says that they use him for directions and he's useful because maps can be wrong.
You shitting me?
Sure, maps can be wrong, but I assume most Republic maps are accurate. Also, in their scenario where the Republic has the home field, wouldn't they have accurate maps? In the beginning of the episode, they knew where the enemy base was. Cody knew where it was, and I assume he debriefed his military personnel. This just sounds like a completely superfluous superpower. Plus, with an ability that seems to be powerful, it doesn't seem to be used appropriately. It would be as if the Avengers used Bruce Banner's Hulk ability just to breach in places. It would totally come off as underwhelming. Hypothetically speaking, since they could engineer this ability into a human, why can't they just engineer this in a map? I bet you could program a map to detect the electromagnetic pulses on an entire planet. A better ability would probably be enhanced speed, since he ran up to the droids with a knife, while he does it when it's blatantly appropriate. For instance, he's apt at fighting against Magna Guards. Maybe it's useful because clones aren't good against them? Moving on, after explaining Sank's ability, Cody starts making constipation sounds. An evac is ordered for him while Kix stays with him, and Rex says that he's in charge now. Despite Rex saying he has a plan to infiltrate the base, Eric Harris thinks he shouldn't be in charge because Cody called in the Bad Batch for a reason. Jesse's little man syndrome kicks in and he says Eric Harris can't talk to Rex like that. Superman syndrome comes in and starts strangling Jesse while Eric Harris and Kik get into a shoving match. This seems to be an interesting conflict, but it doesn't play a role in the episode or the arc. They have something similar happen in another episode, but it stands on its own and doesn't connect to the main plot. Even though I do see the potential in this, it doesn't play a role, so it really doesn't have a purpose at all in the arc. Shortly after, Snake halts the tussle and tells his men to respect Rex's command, basically marking the end of inner conflict between the two types of clones for the episode. The main reason why having a subplot of their dispute would add to their story is that it could make the characters grow. Having this subplot connect to the main plot would work very nicely simply because the CIS aren't much of a foe already. What they could have done was make their differences in ideas or value play a role of them coming out as losers at the end of one of the episodes. I'm not saying this is the only way it has to be done, but just as an example. To top it off, the values of the opposing sides aren't really developed beyond the fact that the Bad Batch think the regular clones are inferior while the regular clones don't like it. I would say military tactics, but that part doesn't really bother either of them, nor is it something that Rex is not familiar with. After they kiss and make up, they continue their mission and come across a CIS outpost, not the targeted base. Rex and Snake discuss some strategies.
I was thinking we'd take a page from your book. Rush them head on. I like your style.
You've got to be kidding.
Rex has done this before. I don't know how that is taking a page out of the Bad Batch's book. Also, let's not forget how pointless it is for Rex to describe the Bad Batch's style when we know exactly how they operate from the previous scene. Sure, the Bad Batch's strategy is to go in head first, but does Rex not remember the battles when he did that as well? Nevertheless, the clones just ran out untouched from blaster fire, while in one cut the droids aren't even animated shooting in the direction they should be firing in. Besides the fact that the stick droids didn't put up a fight, at least not having music in the background was a nice touch. It's not necessary to have it here since we don't need emotion forced on the audience for them taking a random outpost. After they finished clearing the first level, the droids at top of the outpost were completely surprised by their arrival. Why couldn't one of the droids on the ground notify the droids up top about the attack? Do they not have a system to warn them? Additionally, why don't the droids up top have any weapons? I get that their main job is at a desk, but wouldn't they have measures to protect themselves? Maybe an auto turret, maybe an emergency door, maybe an armory with blasters, because what is going to happen when the platoon of droids from down below fail? This outpost seems woefully unprepared. By the end of the skirmish, Superman Syndrome then says,
Is it over already? Oh, man!
I find it funny when the fans of the show advocate that this is not a kid's show. Yet they have meathead characters that deliver these jokes. By this point, they might as well replace all his dialogue with Patrick Star quotes. Once the skirmish commences, Snake compliments Rex for being good for a regular clone, as if this rivalry will actually be a factor in the grand scheme. As the scene goes on, you see their target in the background, and apparently it only has 30 droids guarding it. How does this important target only have 30 droids protecting it? That seems quite low for the CIS, which has an enormous amount of troopers. Also, this sacked outpost seems to be only walking distance away from their target. Wouldn't the droids at the base at least hear the battle going on? Couldn't one of the droids from the control center from earlier sounded an alarm? Anyway, a whole platoon of droids are heading this way according to Elon Musk. Snake says it was from their crash from earlier. Well, after that skirmish, the CIS now decides to send in reinforcements. Mr. Waternoose, a skilled general according to the narrating mustache commander, is one step behind. He should have ordered the reinforcements earlier. As their plan proceeds, the Bad Batch will get on a speeder and flank from behind, while the regular clones will attack it head on. Once the camera pans to the base, the droids don't even seem prepared for an attack. They all should be taking cover and on the lookout. Imagine the beginning of A New Hope, after the Empire is following the Rebel frigate. Instead of the Rebel soldiers being in position to be breached, they are just patrolling around the ship as if it's a normal day and get surprise attack. That wouldn't make any sense. Well, that's what's happening in this scene. To prove my point even more, the stick droids will take it away. They had absolutely no clue what was going on. Why didn't Mr. Waternoose communicate with them about the attacks earlier? Since these droids are controlled by a central command, shouldn't communication be an advantage for them? Computers can compute faster than humans can. Shouldn't they follow orders quicker than the clones? I know these droids work independently now, however though, that doesn't mean that they can't use its devices to communicate with the droids down below about specific orders. Communication is crucial in combat, yet a force that's been around for 13 years can't seem to grasp this concept. To add insult to injury, they're facing towards the base when they should be facing away. If enemies were to appear anywhere, they would come from the jungle. I highly doubt they would teleport in. Child soldiers would be better guards than these disgraces. Plus, these blasters that Rex and Jesse are using don't seem to be suppressed by any means. Can these stick droids not hear? Additionally, these droids are commanded from a central command. So couldn't they detect when droids are being killed immediately? Their internet provider must really suck. The worst part is that this squad of clones went loud and proud yet didn't face any repercussions for being noticed. Once all the clones are in position, the massive force meant for tracking the clones reached the sacked outpost. The illogical part about this is that they have a larger force tracking the clones than they do defending the outposts and their bases. They should have just had these forces at these checkpoints since they knew there were intruders threatening them. How come Mr. Waternoose is considered a legit opponent but has this kind of strategy? As the story continues, Mr. Waternoose and his commander droid put 2 and 2 together that the clones will be attacking the main base. Apparently, Mr. Waternoose says that the Republic must know about their algorithm. Remember this for later. Then Mr. Waternoose notifies the droids at the base to be on high alert. They should have been on high alert a long time ago. Is this man procrastinating or something? Plus, he has to communicate with the droids through the commander. Why can't all the droids just follow the order on the fly instead of waiting until the captain droid? Since they are all controlled by one central system, couldn't the information of this order be sent through them electronically? I mean, if they used this, their communication would be a lot faster. By no surprise, the droid that is communicated to this is very shocked by the fact that an attack is coming. Literally, the not so far away outpost glass broke during the attack at the control center. Couldn't they see and or hear the skirmish because the clones aren't doing a stealth operation? However, most importantly, The droids from the outpost should have communicated with the droids at this base about the attack. After the droid's head was shot off, Rex and Jesse jump out of cover, take some shots, and throw a grenade at a group of completely unaware droids. The droid's captain/leader got his head popped off, multiple shots were going off, and this group of droids are socializing with one another. Are they completely unaware, or can they not react in time? I'm gonna go with both. Believe it or not, the droids took cover, but it didn't matter for Eric Harris took them out. I don't know why Snake, Superman Syndrome, and Elon Musk did not participate. I guess they knew that these droids aren't even worth their time and energy. The rest of the droids retreat and the squad enters the building. Once Superman Syndrome breaches the door into the base, there's more bad choreography. These droids don't even shoot right away, and instead one of them complains. That droid had a solid second to shoot. After Elon Musk took out a droid that can't aim convincingly, the two droids taken out by Snake didn't even shoot at him. Superman Syndrome gets a free kill with a droid that runs forward for some reason. Before Superman Syndrome and Elon Musk go around the corner, there's blaster fire coming down the hallway. That makes sense because that's suppressing fire, aka fire that degrades the performance of an enemy force below the level needed to fulfill their mission. However, once they go around the corner, they stop shooting. Suppressing fire is good and all, but you might as well shoot them when they're in sight as well. It is awfully convenient that the second the Bad Batch starts charging down the hallway, that the droids just stop shooting. They get to this door and 3 more droids just come running in to be picked off by Superman Syndrome. Next, it pans to Snake, who just shoots a droid that made some distance down the hallway. The fighting performed by the CIS would make a lot more sense if this was done by Magna Guards armed with their staffs, rather than droids armed with blasters. Obviously, you have to get up close to do a melee strike, but with a blaster, you can kinda shoot them at the distance, and these droids might as well use that to their advantage. Once they breached the room with an electric grenade, the droids inside were completely shocked that they were there, even though they were notified and there was a huge skirmish taking place right outside. To make matters worse, none of the droids guarding these commander droids in the room even took a shot at the Bad Batch. In this long shot, the droids either A, ran up to them even when they had blasters, B, didn't take shots at them, C, were completely in shock well into the battle, or D, all of the above. Back to the story, Snake orders Elon Musk to analyze the CIS data. It cuts to Rex and Jesse taking cover while a bunch of droids standing in front of a doorway are fighting back. There's some cover for the droids on the side, but they chose not to because that's Clone Wars logic for ya. As Superman Syndrome and Snake flank the squad, the droids are completely oblivious. Even the droid that can clearly see Snake stabbing a droid in the back doesn't even acknowledge him. The last droid who gets killed in the group asks them, where do they come from? As if this is a casual game, not a battle. Just asking a friendly question to your enemies. After an exchange of banter from Rex and Superman Syndrome, a transport comes over with a bunch of droids. As Rex is in the facility and the clones are getting shot at, the squad doesn't even take cover against the super battle droids, which I will refer to them as SBDs. Inside, apparently Rex has a chip with him that he orders Elon Musk to find a sequence that matches the one on the chip. More importantly, they find a live signal from a different planet. Back to the battle, the SBDs get closer and for some reason are shooting over the clones' heads. Literally, Superman Syndrome is huge and SBDs are missing above his head. Not only that, the clones aren't even moving. So, as the squad finally gets into cover, Snake contacts Eric Harris, orders him to get a transport, and Eric Harris spots a CIS vehicle. Back inside, they hear the audio that sounds incoherent, but somehow they recognize it as human.
What is that? It sounds almost human.
Yeah, that doesn't sound human at all. Anyway, Eric Harris gets a speeder and for some reason the outpost has nobody at it. And I don't know why, but seems to be a different time of day. You can say it looks as if it's a 2-hour difference between the two shots. The only way that is possible is if he's in a different time zone. Plus, there's nothing special I found online on Anaxis explaining this detail, hence I believe that this is an animation error. Back to the story, he takes them out and steals the vehicle. Then it cuts to the squad taking cover for a hot second. Once they run out, the SPDs can't seem to hit anything and continue to aim over their heads. I'm starting to think the SPD's right analog stick is broken. At the control room, Rex asks Elon Musk to find out who it is, and wouldn't you know it, it's Echo's number. While Rex is being barked at to leave, he feels emotional about Echo being alive. As they leave, the droid's inaccuracy doesn't improve and Eric Harris arrives to pick them up. After they fly off, you can clearly tell that this is brighter outside than it was in the previous shots. It cuts to the commander droid speaking with Mr. Waternoose. The droid says they're retreating and they figure out that they traced back the signal of the algorithm, which scares Mr. Waternoose. Okay, I hate how this algorithm is considered to be so important and be the bane of Captain Rex's strategy, yet it doesn't even seem effective against him. When Rex had no Bad Batch members around him, he went through the situation perfectly fine. Even when the show is trying to pretend and trying to force the audience to believe that this is new for Captain Rex, he seems to be perfectly fine with this style of fighting. It doesn't seem to be as if he grew as a character. With Mr. Waternoose's concerning attitude that you clearly see, it's hard to consider the opponent intimidating when he reacts to this, and there are 3 more episodes in this arc to go. Maybe the show should have displayed him talking about a backup plan that could at least show the antagonist as prepared, and more importantly not scared, so he's not perceived as a joke. With that reaction, we can already predict that there is no chance of him winning this battle. I know the bad guys rarely win at all in this show, and I have brought it up multiple times during my reviews, but a good villain wouldn't be such a doomer this early on in our arc. Plus, that would have been a better final scene with him showing us a glimpse of his plan B, rather than Rex just confirming that it is Echo. This would have given the audience something competitive to look forward to. Something to watch the characters grow. I know people are going to rebuttal and say that the original ending of the episode is better because not many people know what Echo's number is. However, this problem would be solved with having Rex announce that it was Echo once he heard the numbers. Alright, let's go to the next one. It starts out with them talking about getting Echo, while also implies that Anakin told Rex about Padme. I guess he really likes risking some serious secrets. Anyway, Anakin calls in Padme and apologizes that he didn't expect the siege to last this long. How was Anakin able to rank up to be a general without understanding terminology or strategizing? I guess they follow FPS multiplayer logic when ranking up in the military. Plus, in episode 2 and 3, he wasn't considered a general at all. Then cockblocker Obi-Wan starts coming and Rex notifies Anakin about his arrival. Padme asks what's wrong with Anakin and he says that Obi-Wan is coming. She doesn't believe him and he admits that he's more concerned about Rex's feelings getting away in their mission. Fortunately, Padme calls him out on his hypocrisy and he changes his mind. Outside, Obi-Wan is looking into Rex's BS, and once Anakin comes out, he shows how he knows about his relationship with Padme, since this is close to Revenge of the Sith and that Padme is about to give birth. She doesn't really look all that pregnant, especially for someone that's carrying twins. Finally, the Special Forces team moves toward the planet they think Echo is on, Skako Minor. As their ship gets attacked by a flying monkey, they go outside and they're ordered not to shoot at these flying monkeys because they're locals. I know they're flying lizards, but I'm gonna call them flying monkeys. Anyway, Anakin gets taken by one of the flying monkeys and Snake grapples onto them flying off. As they're well in the sky, Snake thinks it's a good idea to shoot at them. Imagine if he hit the flying monkey and they both go down. Do they have any jetpacks? I don't think so. Even if he shoots off the pilot, the creature could freak out and drop Anakin. Doesn't sound like a smart idea. Plus, Anakin said no casualties, and Snake tries to go on a suicide mission that would kill them both just to kill the pilot. Aren't clones supposed to follow orders perfectly? However, this show never follows that logic. Not only that, I mean there is a perfectly good spaceship and could easily track down the assailant. They could track Anakin through his Apple smartwatch looking thing and follow him there. Now that sounds like a better idea. Just another over-the-top action sequence. Eventually Snake lands lightly on an edge where it's perched above the village Anakin is dropped off at. The rest of the gang follows him and lands by Snake. After Rex clearly tells them no casualties, Superman Syndrome rolls a boulder down a cliff that could kill the people in the village. It's pretty reckless that they start shooting to disarm them. Those crab legs seem mighty dangerous. We know their guns have stun, so they could have done that. They could have shot their weapons in the air. These people look primitive too, so I imagine shooting guns in the air could easily display their might. Then the boulder nearly kills Anakin. What was Superman Syndrome thinking? I should have seen that coming. I really don't have that high of expectation for this character. Anyway, Elon Musk translates what the primitive people are saying and how they don't want the war here. Anakin makes it clear that the Separatists brought the war here. Remember this for later. As Rex is explaining how they're trying to find their POW friend, I noticed Superman Syndrome's size is inconsistent. Last episode, he looks as if he's a head taller, and now he is Rex's height at 6 foot. Then, the next shot, he looks slightly taller. They list him at 1.83 meters, which is 6 feet in the American system, but he clearly looks much taller in a bunch of other shots. Rex finishes his statement by saying they leave the planet as soon as they're done their mission. Remember this for later. The locals promise to send scouts with them to locate the Separatist base for them. At the Separatist base, Mr. Waternoose notifies the Techno Union that the Republic sent a clone squad to the signal of the algorithm. His real name's Wat Tambur, but he's gonna be Techno Union guy from now on. Back to the squad. Remember that Snake's ability is that they use them as a map, yet they bring scouts to show them where the base was and use Elon Musk to track the signal? He's also never wrong with directions according to Elon Musk. Sounds as if he lied on his resume. There is some doubt that Echo is alive from the Bad Batch with the lack of signal and that this might be a trap. After edgy comments from Eric Harris, they get into a scuffle which makes Anakin's orders the Bad Batch to scout out the perimeter. Once Anakin starts talking to Rex, he tries to calm him down and tries to show the logic of the Bad Batch's perspective. Then Rex says he recognizes the voice even though it was somewhat incoherent. He could have just said he heard Echo's number, which would be better substance. Speaking of voices, I wanted to address at some point when making Clone Wars reviews, but I think D. Bradley Baker was miscasted to voice the clones. Now, Baker tried to the best of his abilities and is a talented voice actor, but he doesn't have the voice of Tamora Morrison. The main reason why I bring that up is because Tamora Morrison had this badass and distinct voice.
I was recruited by a man called Tyrannus on one of the moons of Docta. Curious. Do you like your army? I look forward to seeing them in action. They'll do their job well. I'll guarantee that.
Versus...
Those missiles have 100 megaton yield. We won't even make it to the Delta. What can I do? I've tried to reason with him. Those are the orders. Great, another suicide mission. The capital is too well armed. Why does it seem like he has it out for clones? I think you're all overreacting. Obviously, General Krell knows what he's doing. Do you really think he doesn't care if he loses men?
The clones should have more masculine voices due to the fact that they're in the military. Even actresses who portray military characters have deeper voices. You might say in the show the clones are meant to show their perspective and how the war emotionally affects them, thus Baker's higher pitched voice fits more compared to Morrison's voice. I do agree that is displayed in the show, but you can have more masculine voice actors dive into these emotional character moments. For instance, Clint Eastwood was one of the epitomes of masculinity, yet he can play a character that shows more of their feelings. We know him for roles as Dirty Harry, but he did a good job as Robert in the romantic film Bridges of Madison County. Now, Baker can get kinda close to Morrison's voice for some of the clones he depicts, but I think they could have found someone more suited for the role. I know it's distinct, but there are actors out there that are able to impersonate distinct voices. Here's an analogy. Steph Curry's a great basketball player, but he wouldn't be as effective if he played center instead of guard due to his height. No matter how hard Steph could work at being an NBA center, it still wouldn't be the right fit for him. Now, I am very aware that Baker is a talented voice actor and does an excellent job in a lot of shows, movies, and video games I like. Even though I think they should have had him on the team, I just don't think they should have cast him as the clone trooper's voice. Back to the story, they get into the tower's elevator, and once they get to the top, they're spotted by these droids that can't shoot targets standing still. This droid was 3 feet away and can't seem to hit Superman syndrome, the biggest clone trooper by far. It either shot him at point blank and missed, or shot him at point blank and didn't affect him. They never specified that they had special armor. So what is going on? Originally, Anakin wanted this to be a covert operation.
This is a stealth mission.
I do find it funny that he wanted to do a stealth mission, which is pretty hilarious because he took like one of the main elevators. As the mission proceeds, the droids don't know about them getting breached after that loud firefight. They should be penalized for being loud and entering the front door. Even in the prequels, when a ship got breached, they were aware about it while also taking better measures to handle it. Since the Bad Batch lost track of the signal, they split in search for clues. Well, if they lost signal, why don't they just use Snake to find where Echo's location is? Apparently he's never wrong, yet they're not even using his ability. Based on what we know, they should use Snake instead of this device that Elon Musk has. At Anakin's perspective, they sneak up on him and they got him sandwiched. They're generous to shoot one at a time even though he has no place to go. You can clearly tell that the one that faces his back doesn't even shoot at the most opportune time. Talk about plot armor. Coincidentally, Elon Musk's device gets the signal back. And then Snake points at the door. I think it's safe to say that all credit goes to Google Maps in this one. There are more droids not being able to shoot at Anakin at point blank range. At the door, the Techno Union guy video calls them and says that they predicted the clones' every move. Oh lord, this squad clearly walked in from the front door and the droids weren't even ready until Anakin was in the hallway. It sounds as if this algorithm is borderline non-existent and this Techno Union guy is being vain. Additionally, Mr. Waternoose figured this out with a droid going to the invaded base and a commander droid telling them that they tracked the signal. Then Mr. Waternoose communicated with the Techno Union. Finally, their strategy was them going through the front door, taking the main elevator, and the droid's awareness was still underwhelming. They used their precious algorithm, and they can't even stop them. Once the droid's reinforcements come, it takes them 11 seconds to start shooting at the clones after the Techno Union guy orders them to do so. Are they ran on Windows 95? They just walk up to them when they have guns. Just shoot them. This is choreography fighting zombies, not fighting soldiers in a futuristic war. After killing a bunch of droids, they eventually take cover and open the door. Inside, Musk opens the tube and it's Echo. What a BS not surprise. Next. It begins with droids charging at them without shooting while they just effortlessly get through it. With Superman Syndrome throwing a droid at 3 charging droids, by this point they're just showing off against lackluster opponents. It would be as if LeBron James was going up against middle schoolers. That's not competitive at all. Anakin comes in and asks about the progress. Elon Musk and Rex say that he doesn't recall any of the events leading up to this moment while they're trying to detach him from the system. As the Bad Batch eventually make it to cover, as if it matters by this point, they seal off the door. With his marching droids, the Techno Union guy comes down the hallway. Once the Decimator droid comes and breaches the door, they unlock Echo and they need to find a way out. Echo points out that there's an exhaust pipe. As the droid is breaching through, Echo opens the pipe. I do find it funny that Echo conveniently has a screwdriver attached to his arm. That's oddly coincidental, so they can open up a hatch. The Techno Union is just using him for his mind. Thus, I really don't see the purpose of it. Superman Syndrome launches all the clones up, Anakin jumps up, Superman Syndrome throws the bombs at the panel, and Anakin force grabs Superman Syndrome to get him in the pipe. After the control room blows up, the Techno Union guy investigates it and notices that Echo is gone. In the ventilation shaft, Echo explains that he got access to their database, which explains how he knew the way out. Snake asks Echo for directions, even though Snake is Mr. GPS himself. I swear, his power gets more useless as this arc goes on. Anyway, Echo takes them to a beam to go across. The reason Echo brought them here was that there's a landing pad on the other side in hopes that there is a ship for them to steal. As they're walking across the beam, the droids sandwich them and don't even start shooting at them. The one droid that does finally shoot dies to Anakin. As the squad is deciding a plan while Superman Syndrome and Eric Harris nearly fall off the ledge, the droids don't even shoot at them. Is this a turn-based RPG or something? Additionally, the Techno Union guy ordered them to be eliminated. Plus, if the Techno Union droids need to keep Echo alive, they can still shoot at the other Republic soldiers simply because Echo's in the middle. Don't tell me the blaster shots would just go through the clone's armor and kill Echo when we clearly see these shots from earlier stopping after making contact. Additionally, they can probably capture another clone and do the exact same experiment to him, so the droids don't even need to keep Echo alive. While there are no blasters going off in the background, Elon Musk comes up with the idea to summon the flying creatures by conveniently calling them with their scream, which he has recorded. I bet you recognize where that was from. I don't think the arc ever made note of his recording hobby. Talk about a throwaway line. The writing in this sequence is so absurdly lazy that they had to throw in an eccentric trait for Elon Musk so they could survive. You can't even imply that this is something normal. They should have had build up to this. To make matters worse, they didn't even make that noise in the next scene. However, the most damning part about this is that the flying monkeys come instantly, as if Elon Musk had a flute of the summoning dragon. Talk about a stroke of luck. What I don't get is, why couldn't they just use a sound that D. Bradley Baker could make? I mean, he's an excellent voice actor in making creature and monster noises.
Turkey?
You might as well use them, especially when you're Disney and you have all this money. Once they all miraculously jump on, the droids haven't taken a single shot in a long time, and when they were walking forward, they didn't even seem that they were making good progress. Then, the droids begin to fly, and they could have used that ability earlier to surround them instead of walking in a single file line. As they're getting chased, we see the first droid blaster shot in more than 80 seconds.
Anybody got a brilliant idea?
I do have a brilliant idea.
I'm hanging here.
When the locals attacked us, I recorded the creature's distress call. It records everything. It's a hobby, which allows us to call those flying creatures to us. There is our ride out of here.
Now how do we get on them?
How else? We jump.
All right, I'll go first. I don't want to do this, but here I go.
See you later. Oh, that wasn't part of the plan. Those things can fly.
What could they possibly be thinking about? On a positive note though, Anakin says something logical,
Have to shake those droids!
but he ruins it afterwards by saying something useless.
How do I steer this thing?
This is useless dialogue because him not being able to steer doesn't even play a factor in the episode at all. Plus, this problem that Anakin brings up just resolves itself without the good guys doing anything in such little time. Also, this episode is only 18 minutes long, while most of them are over 20. They could have had this scene resolve this issue satisfyingly. The only droid that's following them crashes into a rock. And that's it. Literally, all the other droids that we saw would have continued to chase them closely behind. Where did they go? There were a bunch of droids from the previous scene that were alive and well, yet only 4 of them followed? I don't mind that they don't send their entire arsenal to chase after the guys, but they still should have sent more droids. This scene is so poorly done that I wouldn't be surprised that they had to make last minute edits. Back to the story, the squad decides to land at the village that they contacted in the last episode. Despite the chieftain being impressed with how they handled the flying monkeys, he rightfully questions their reasoning of coming to their village. At least the show displays Anakin stuttering for an answer, and he says this.
Tell him we had no choice. Tell him that we wore out our welcome in Perkle.
What kind of reason is that? Just leave. You have a ship. The natives were peaceful and didn't want the war to come, which was established in the last episode.
He says he does not want our war on his planet.
As this ADHD story continues, they get attacked by the flying droids. What happened to them? It made no sense that they lost them in the first place, but the show made it clear that they weren't on their trail.
How you holding up, Echo? Never better, sir.
Why did they fall so far behind when these flying droids seemed to be zooming by the crash droid? Literally, they had Rex and Echo displaying a moment of relief right after the droids just disappeared, implying that they were gone. Yet they came back. Anyway, they shoot down every invader except for one. Since one droid survived, Anakin realized that they are all in bad doo-doo and the Techno Union will attack. The chieftain makes a good point that they brought war to their people and that they broke the promise. Rex interrupts and says that he agrees with them, but says look at what they did to Echo. He says the natives have to pick a side, which doesn't even involve them, a primitive and independent tribe with Anakin concurring. Well, you should have remembered what you said from earlier and left in the first place. The writers really forced this climactic battle. Suddenly, Eric Harris starts backing up from behind and says he sees many forces coming. 3 things. Number 1, he's looking at the opposite direction where the base was. Number 2, he implies that there are forces coming with the Special Forces Squad all joining him, implying that they can all see a large army coming in the near distance. Number 3, then we see the Techno Union guy and his peeps ordering their army back at the base to attack the village. How could Eric Harris and his peeps see that physically coming? The droid didn't even report back yet. This would have been fine if they made it seem as if that this was just an assumption. Yet the show makes it seem as if that the army is right at their doorstep. Now for the climactic battle. The Techno Union comes to the village to see that it is evacuated. Anakin launches a signal which makes Superman Syndrome roll a boulder down and the natives start charging. The droids start shooting because the writers know it's okay due to the fact that the natives aren't main characters with plot armor. Please don't tell me that we can forgive the writing because we know Rex and Anakin can't die because of later installments in the timeline. Of course these characters can't die at these moments. Abusing plot armor is not good writing. Put them in a situation that doesn't have an obvious opportunity for the bad guys to kill them, yet they don't take that chance. This would also make the main characters more impressive than how the show writes it. Additionally, you barely see any blue blasters coming from the distance, which means the Special Forces squads ain't shooting and using the villagers as pawns on their own. Once Superman Syndrome and Snake come in, the droids start shooting less at them even when they're up close. They show Eric Harris shooting a droid that almost stealthily killed a native, and he gives him the "I got you" signal. Eric Harris probably thanked the native, allowing him to use him as cannon fodder. As this pointless battle rages on, the War of the Worlds walkers comes in and start wreaking even more havoc. Anakin orders Rex to take one of the walkers while Anakin will take out the other. Elon Musk, who is not even in cover, plants some electric bombs to kill the droids. As they're taking the walkers out, Superman Syndrome notices a native dragging one of its kind across the battlefield, and he notices it's going to get stepped on. He jumps in front and saves them as if the writers think the squad actually cares about the natives. Once the walkers get destroyed, the rest of the droids retreat because being a coward is programmed in them for some reason. Since the droid army is about quantity over quality, why did they program retreating into them? They might as well be programmed to keep fighting since they're easily replaced. And not only that, they have a huge numbers advantage. So if they lose one, they still have plenty more. The natives are celebrating the victory even though they got unnecessarily slaughtered in a battle that never needed to take place. What they should have done was have all the natives evac while the Republic stays and fights. I mean, that only sounds fair. Back at the fortress, the Techno Union guy is upset with the loss of Echo because it's bad for business. Additionally, he says that he will talk about their failures with the CIS another time. However, the show implies that the Techno Union guy is going to do something about this, even though it never comes up ever again in this arc. Back at the tribe, Anakin thanks the tribal people for being used as a meat shield in their avoidable battle. I mean, it really helped Anakin's K-D because he needs to compete with Ahsoka. The chieftain thanks Anakin and says he will be an ally for the Jedi anytime, even though Anakin's ignorant action brought war to his people. It seemed as if that a ton of natives died in this battle. Not only that, I can imagine that the Techno Union got a plan for revenge on these people. In the next episode, they don't even imply that the Republic will do anything to protect these people. They would definitely stand a chance against those walkers with their crab legs. Oh, honestly though, they probably will get wiped out. Lastly, Rex and Echo show their friendship, but a very strange statement comes from Echo.
It took so long. Hopefully it's gonna be just like old times. Yeah, just like old times.
It sounds as if he doesn't want to fight no more. I wonder if this actually carries over to the next episode. Remember this for later. Next. It begins with them discussing how to win the Battle of Anaxes and Echo proposing an idea. Echo's strategy is that they will stealthily get through Trench's fleet, enter his cruiser, and take control of the battle droids. They go to the Bad Batch who are getting ready for battle, and Elon Musk brings up how he thinks Echo could be a traitor, but Rex refutes it by saying he wouldn't do that. Once the Special Forces squad starts flying up to the ship, Echo is sending a signal to deceive the CIS fleet. On one of the cruisers, the droid detects their ship coming in, and instead of communicating with the pilots on the inside, this happens.
Yep, it's one of ours. Roger, roger, Shuttle TC-159. You may approach and land.
Really? The droid at the panel saw the image of the ship and then it changed. That's really suspicious. This was better executed in Return of the Jedi because the main characters had an Imperial dropship to sneak behind the Empire's lines. At least the Empire asked them for their ID and they answered, which gave them permission to land on Endor. Also, there are other cruisers in the area that could probably scan it and see that there might be some suspicion there, and you can clearly tell that this ship is different looking. You can even say that it's very Republic looking, comparable to the other shuttles they own. Seriously, they can just tell by looking out the window. Lastly, the ship doesn't even land in the hangar and instead attaches to the bottom to the ship as if it's a parasite. I wonder if the CIS will actually check where the ship lands. After the battle on the planet begins, the Special Forces squad enters and you don't even get to see how they got in. Was there a port down there? Did they do anything special to make an artificial entrance? I would prefer to see an explanation. As they're walking in, there are no security cameras, but I will admit, that's a flaw I've seen in great Star Wars movies as well. What I'm conveying is that they both deserve to be criticized in the episode and in the movies. Anyway, they get to the interface of the ship. At the bridge of the ship, Mr. Waternoose orders the commander droid to get an answer from the algorithm. Mr. Waternoose just assumed that everything worked out on the base on Skako Minor, even though he should check on a neutral faction. They literally stepped down their allegiance in the war, so they're not technically separatist. They should at least show a quick scene of the Techno Union guy lying to Mr. Waternoose. Right after the call, Mr. Waternoose should order an investigation to be sent since they're war profiteers, not allies. This would work because it shows that Mr. Waternoose is not negligent, which is kind of important for a so-called successful general. Back to the squad. Elon Musk thinks of the idea of manipulating the IP address of the algorithm, which is actually logical and I appreciate it. At the land battle, Obi-Wan and Mace Windu jump down alone to the base and the worst scene in the entire episode happens.
My name is General Mace Windu of the Jedi Order. At this point of the Clone War, I have dismantled and destroyed over 100,000 of you Type 1 battle droids. I'm giving you an opportunity to peacefully lay down your weapons so that you may be reprogrammed to serve a better purpose than spreading the mindless violence and chaos which you have inflicted upon the galaxy.
Blast them!
They're droids, not humans. They can't just go AWOL by simply telling them. I don't know what Mace Windu was thinking, but these droids shouldn't value their lives since they're droids and are used as pawns. They can't just surrender when being asked from their enemies. Of course I get the droids are poorly programmed, but negotiating with them isn't and shouldn't be something programmed in them. Not surprisingly, but definitely not good, they didn't shoot immediately and gave him a chance to speak in the middle of the battle. When Mace Windu entered in, they should have shot at him immediately. When this happened in Tarkovsky's Clone Wars, they started shooting instantly. To make it even worse, when they jumped down, the droids were facing the other direction. They should be looking up once the ceiling breaks. Shouldn't they be at some tactical position instead of being in these lines as if they're fighting in a field during the 18th century? Lastly, there's an army of droids and they're just going to block all their blaster shots if they can't convince them to join their side in the middle of the battle? Who thought of this plan? I got a theory. Additionally, I find it hilarious that all these droids are taking orders from this random B1 droid. I guess he was the commander, even though he seems to be another average Joe droid. Plus, when looking at the Jedi blocking, it seems to be an extremely underwhelming amount of shots coming towards them. There's an army out there and it seems as if a very small percentage of them are shooting. Once the clones come in, they just land in plain sight on top of the crates where there is no cover. At this moment, only one clone gets shot. In the afterlife, he's probably like, why? Why me? And all my buddies survived that instance. When we get a bird's eye view, the blaster shots from both sides are completely missing when none of them are in cover. Even in the Revolutionary War, with much less inaccurate weapons, we're able to hit targets farther than 20 feet away. There should be so much more bloodshed. There must have been something that went wrong with the Jango Fett template. What the Republic should have done was bring in their gunships from above and strafe from the top. Maybe they should have dropped some grenades. Are there no clones with them with explosives that would be sufficient for this situation? I guess they just use rocket launchers as a non-lethal method to capture convicts on the run.
Set weapons to stun. I want her alive. This'll knock her off her feet.
I don't think the Republic was losing to the algorithm countering Captain Rex, but rather from Obi-Wan and Mace Windu being terrible generals. Even in the prequels, when they were in battles similar to this, they were better because they logically had much more bloodshed, despite those battles not even being the best choreographed already. Well, back to the episode, Echo successfully dupes Mr. Waternoose and goes with the order to reinforce the area because the Republic strategy relies on the Jedi. Wait, why would that be necessary for the droid army to be in the same area? All the droids of the CAS are independently ran. Why do they have to be in a vicinity? Additionally, you don't really need analytics to make these decisions. Algorithms are mathematical processes to solve problems. I think the method that the CIS are trying to use is common sense. Still pretty hard for them though. Their strategy seems very basic, straightforward, and not only that, pretty predictable. I mean, the CAS really doesn't seem as if that they're fighting any different compared to other episodes. If they wanted a more powerful way to show the algorithm, maybe show some probabilities being calculated and some specific details. Most importantly though, make how they fight different as well. Anyway, to understand the Republic's tactics, all you have to do is physically look at them. It's not rocket science to understand that the Republic heavily relies on the Jedi in combat. Back to reality, the General just has to put 2 and 2 together because the Republic's 2 military leaders stupidly trapped themselves in the building. Also, it's not explained why Mace and Obi-Wan need to be down there. They definitely had other options. Maybe they use air superiority to their advantage because they have plenty of starships. If they eventually had to go down there, they could have waited after they won the battle in the air. Back to the squad, Echo explains his decision to send all the CIS forces there so he can send an electric pulse to shut all of them down even though they're supposed to be independently commanded. Back at the base, Mace Windu is talking to Obi-Wan about Echo's plan, which was relayed from Anakin. Mace Windu turns his back on the battle and barely blocks any of the shots while all of the clones on top of the crates are still alive when they have absolutely no cover when there's an enemy army steps away. To top it off, I think one of the droids actually took Mace Windu's advice and went AWOL. It seems to be shooting at his own guys. What is also baffling is that this droid design is the first appearance in the show and it dies in a few seconds by a jet trooper. This is another new low for the droids, and yeah, I can believe I'm saying that. As the battle rages on, they finally show more corpses on the field. Since there's not a lot of cover, they could have at least shown more of them getting shot. When it seems as if a bunch of CIS have been eliminated, more B1 droids come in. At least the previous battle had different classes of droids. These stick droids don't exactly raise the tension in this situation. To prove my point even more, the droids just marched in and don't even start shooting at them even though they are well in range. Don't tell me that Echo ordered them not to shoot because Mr. Waternoose gives the final orders and Echo is never shown actually ordering them not to do so. Once Echo launches the pulse, they gradually start to die one by one while the others that haven't been shut down yet just stand there. Why didn't Echo just launch the pulse to shut down all the droids originally? If he did that, there would be less steps and less bloodshed. There's just so many questions left unanswered. Even though this scene is poorly written, let's just look at it from a suspense standpoint. So, the final wave of droids is inferior to the previous wave of droids, and the important characters in the room we all know are going to live. I know the fans of the show love the clones, but I doubt many value this faceless guy who killed a droid going AWOL. I'm tempted to write a Wikipedia page for this droid. When it cuts to the squad having some banter with Echo about his suspicion of being a traitor, Mr. Waternoose asks why the algorithm failed on them. Despite the droid's malfunctioning, he says it was the algorithm's fault, even though we know that the algorithm produces battle plans, not a source to make the droids function. Maybe the Republic did some interference with the droids? He was well aware at the end of the first episode of this arc that the Republic knew about the algorithm. As you thought he couldn't get any more stupid, Mr. Waternoose says this.
A wise leader does not rely completely on things such as algorithms.
It was a total juxtaposition because he stated the algorithm never failed before when it clearly has in this arc numerous times, but then says a good leader doesn't rely on algorithms. In every episode of this arc, all his decisions were based on his algorithm. Additionally, the commanding droid said that they lost the battle, yet they have working droids on the ship and an entire fleet, while the Republic has no fleet seen in the distance. Talk about a lack of moxie. They could send down a cruiser in the atmosphere and send in air superiority. It's not as if that they have a Republic fleet to worry about as of right now. Not only that, what's so important about this airfield anyway? Just because the Republic recaptured their airfield doesn't mean they'll start producing cruisers to combat them. Usually a MacGuffin in these battles consists of a person or persons, whether it's the Republic protecting civilians or the CIS protecting an important individual. Having MacGuffins in these locations is pretty self-explanatory why they would be battlegrounds. However, in this episode, the Republic capturing a single airfield is enough for them to win a war across an entire planet. I mean, the CIS can still send ships from their cruisers. It's not as if they lost all their air support. I think the writers used a cheap excuse for the Republic to win the Battle of Anaxis. Back to the scene, Mr. Warnu says his next strategy will be total annihilation. Oh boy, I wonder what that would be. According to Echo, Mr. Warnus is going to blow up most of Anaxis with a bomb in the base. I know people are going to be saying, see, there is a purpose to the airfield because there's a bomb inside. However, the Republic didn't know about it until Echo brought it up. Thus, the Republic didn't send their forces down to the airfield because they knew there was a bomb there. Since Echo can only attempt with no guarantees, Anakin goes after Mr. Warnus and hopes to stop the bomb from going off. Conveniently, the bomb is located literally a level below where Mace Windu was and tries to deactivate it. Mace Windu almost deactivates it, but the droids found where Echo's source was coming from and electrocuted him. The CIS now knows about the Special Forces location and sends droids to their location with more bad battle sequences. Not only is Superman Syndrome not in cover, he is shooting without his helmet on. Don't get me wrong, I'm not surprised, I just think it's very ignorant of him. Continuing on, as Mr. Warnus is ordering to leave, Anakin storms into the bridge. I find it funny that no one on the ship located where Anakin was. In Revenge of the Sith, on the same type of ship, the droids found them and activated ray shields to capture Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Palpatine. I guess Grievous had ADT. Anakin easily defeats the droids and cuts off Mr. Warnus' arm because he wouldn't give him the codes for the bombs. Then, Anakin gets the codes to deactivate the bomb and Mace Windu plugs the numbers in. Next, Mr. Warnus shocks Anakin, but Anakin retaliates by killing him. Surprisingly, and I mean surprisingly, Anakin conveniently finds a terminal, knows the code, and gets a detonator to blow up Mr. Warnus' ship. Wow, that was so easy. Was their password 1111? How did Anakin know about this and why is it even there? An explanation would be kinda nice right now. Also, the ability to blow up an entire ship would require more clearance. I mean, this was shown to be easier than hacking someone's Facebook account. I have a feeling someone's going to say this in the comment section that the passcode for the bomb on the base down below is the same to access the detonator. However though, that would be extremely stupid for an organized military. I get it that sometimes people will have email and phone passwords / passcodes be the same. However, this is an organized military and they would certainly differentiate it if it was realistic. Just in case, if the enemies figured out one password, they wouldn't want that password to be reused for anything else. Back to the story, even though this is supposed to be a dark side moment, they have some comedic music with Mr. Warnus dying. Anakin falling to the dark side is taken seriously in the movies, but the show here takes it as a joke. Not a good way to make it tonally sound. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, in writing, you should have a consistent tone. Back to the clones, they fight some more droids that barely shoot at all, and then they say there's too many of them. Based on the previous episodes, I don't think these numbers are by any means overwhelming for them, while there is a terrible action sequence.
What's he doing? Time to release the wrecking ball! Yeah!
Honestly, feel bad for those droids.
It's all clear!
Okay, Snake T poses for some reason. Superman Syndrome just runs out there. The droids get their eyes hurt from the gas, and the droids can't hit anything. For some reason, droids in this show fear for their lives even though they're supposed to be soulless units that are easily replaced. Not only that, who cares about over-the-top action scenes when they have no character growth and are done in an impractical way for the characters? They added more jokes, and I just find it stupid that they have these jokes inserted while the previous scene was a dark side moment from Anakin. As the episode progresses, Eric Harris says that he will buy them sometimes as if 4-stick droids are too hard to deal with. Just look, the droids are just walking in the hall, not shooting, and Eric Harris does a trick shot. To make it even worse, he does another over-the-top phase shot and slaughters a bunch of droids.
You miss me? How touching.
Wow, the droids just ran up to be slaughtered. That's not really helping them buy time, that's just showing off. If he actually wanted them to buy time, he would have found a less time-consuming way to take these guys out. They have to escape, they don't know whether or not Anakin was successful, and they're just messing around. Then Superman Syndrome makes this sound.
You'll top him next time. No, he won't.
This is definitely not a profound or mature show. Not like that matters to this criticism, but you get the drift. As the squad is escaping, you see these lifeless CIS cruisers just looking as if they're idle. Even if they deployed at least most of their ground forces, they should have cruisers and fighters shooting at them. Additionally, why couldn't Mr. Wild News notify them about the intruders? It seems as if the cruisers have no clue what's going on due to the fact of the lack of action they're taking. They probably could have used one of those cruisers down at the battle. They definitely should have, because losing the airfield lost them the Battle of Anaxis. They didn't have to send their entire fleet down there, but maybe 1 or 2 cruisers. The fact that they just gave up on the battle down below doesn't make a whole lot of sense. As the show continues, this scene has the stupidity equivalent to the Mace Windu scene.
I've got a present for you, Wrecker. Oh, seriously? I'm gonna blow it up? The whole stinking thing? This is the happiest day of my life.
Alright, fine, I'll play the actual clip. So Mr. Wild News had a detonator that could blow up not only his own ship instantly, but the rest of the cruisers, yet he needs to have a time bomb for his total annihilation plan to blow up most of the planet. The time bomb should be self-destruct, while the Anaxis bomb should detonate on command. The CIS did it in an atypical way. If he has the technology to blow up his bomb on command, he might as well use it for his plan B. His plan B would have worked. Back at the Republic base, they congratulate the clones, but the Bad Batch isn't in it for the accolades and says Echo can join them because he is different. Just shut up, they were showing off, and I really doubt a show-off and someone who thinks they're superior doesn't want the attention of their greatness of being acknowledged. Lastly, Rex comes over, says it would be okay if Echo joined the Bad Batch, and Echo does so. Look at that, the last scene of the previous episode really didn't matter. Even the idea of Echo being a traitor was mentioned in the episode, however, it really did not play a factor in any of the decision making. Echo seemed to loathe being in combat and or didn't like serving with Rex. Even if that was the case, it doesn't make a lot of sense because Rex and Echo have a friendship, hence he should not be concerned with serving with Rex. Additionally, remember how the Bad Batch and the regular clones didn't get along? You can take that out entirely and it wouldn't affect the plot of this entire arc. It would have been so much better that their prejudice towards each other played more of a role in the decision making process, which would have affected the main plot of this arc. Instead, it's completely superfluous. Finally, did any of these characters really grow in this arc? It didn't seem as if Captain Rex changed in any way, shape, or form. Kind of important when he's the protagonist. I guess you can say Echo had some character growth, but that wasn't really highlighted that much in the episodes. Lastly, how do the droids get worse from the Phantom Menace to this show? They were rushed out in the beginning, but in the beginning they actually took cover and didn't waste time. I see the potential what the writers were going for, however though, it really just didn't connect to the main plot of the story whatsoever. Imagine if they put more time into developing the characters instead of having poorly choreographed action sequences. Anyway, I'm kinda tired of critiquing this arc. Oh boy, I can't wait for the next arc. Yay.